sliding in that corner is a feeling that you can't understand until you do it. My name's Frank McLane. I've been racing motorcycles pretty much most all of my life. Started riding at the age of 5. My dad got me I guess a hardware type mini bike with pull start Briggs and Stratton on it. Started with that and progressed on to a Honda Mini Trail. My dad was an electrician by trade, so he did a lot of work at the local Honda dealership here in town. I don't think he ever got any money. I think he just traded motorcycles, and he'd bring me another one home. And so I progressed from the 50 cc's on up to the larger motorcycles. Started racing probably about 1971 on a SL70 motocross racing. That was kind of new around these parts in the late 60s, early 70s. So I raced SL70 for several years. Then Honda didn't really, I guess, get into the racing aspect of motorcycles until probably 1973, I guess, is when they really came out with a purpose-built race motorcycle. The 1973 XR75 was the first mini bike that was race ready. So my dad got the first two that came to Columbia. I had one to practice on, one to race on. I raced those for probably 2 years, 3 years, throughout Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Progressed on to a 100 class. I raced a 100 for a couple years. Had some back problems, and I got off for a good little while. I was around horses and motorcycles all my life, so I moved to the horse stuff, did horses for a while. And probably 1980, I decided, well, I'm going to try racing again. So I got a CR250, went back and raced about a year or so with that. And I don't know, I kind of felt like I maybe have been out of the picture a little too long. So I just kind of stuck to riding in the woods, did some hare scrambles, enduro type stuff. In 2000, they built a track pretty much local to Columbia in Nisa, South Carolina, a round dirt track, quarter mile. I raced flat track several times as a kid. Didn't really know a lot about it, but I always liked it. Built my bicycles as a kid to look like a flat tracker. So I went out and watched one night. Well, that was it. I started hunting me a motorcycle the following day, I think. I liked the older style stuff. Flat tracking was a type racing that you didn't have to have the latest, greatest to be competitive. The old style motorcycles were still, you could get a good one, and if you could ride, you could go out there and win. No matter whether it was 20 years old, 30 years old, whatever, it would still go out there and be competitive. So I went back to my Honda roots. I found an OXL 350 in a racing frame. As you can see, some of the motorcycles behind me, the one right over my shoulder here, that is the first one I bought. I raced it. I did get a few modern motorcycles, but I still stuck to the vintage stuff. In 2007, I started racing a series called ARMA, Antique Historical Racing Motorcycle Association. I followed that circuit around in 2008. Pretty much I had my class for the national championship won in 2008. With 2 races to go, my daughter, she was racing a local race, and she got hurt and was in the hospital. I missed the last 2 races, so I didn't win the championship in 2008. I missed it by a few points. I was second. So the following year in 2009, we went back chasing the points again. We were racing from Florida to New York, pretty much up and down the East Coast. And in 2009, I won the ARMA 600 Sportsman National Championship on this same one motorcycle over my shoulder. Then in 2010, me and a friend started a local motorcycle series called SEMDRA, Southern Motorcycle Dirt Track Racing Association. We started a series throughout Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. We were averaging 50 racers a race, and we grew it to roughly 125 riders. So that was a pretty big turnout for a flat track race. We did that for several years. It grew at that time. I kind of backed out of the racing a bit, and it was just hard to run a race and be a promoter all in one. Did that for several years, and then it switched hands, and needless to say, it kind of went down to tubes over time. I've raced a few in the past few years, but my age is catching up on me. Even though there's some old guys out there, I just feel like my edge is kind of gone away, and I still enjoy it. And sliding in that corner is a feeling that you can't understand until you do it. It's just a thrill to go in there and pitch it sideways and basically drive it with the rear wheel. You know, the old flat track days, I didn't even run brakes. Now the flat track is just rear brakes only. But the old guys, they would actually use the throttle to throw it sideways and use the throttle to control the motorcycle around the corner with no brakes. Flat tracking has changed a lot over the years, but the vintage style stuff is still kind of the same thing as it was all along. The new promoters running the pro flat track stuff are affiliated with NASCAR, and they've got a lot of ideas that it's hard for the little guy like me or somebody else to get out there and be able to do it. I mean, they've come out this year that if you're going to be an expert, you got to pay $20,000 to be guaranteed to go to a show. You're going to be at that show every week to have a race. You're going to have a hauler that meets their standards. You're going to have tents to meet their standards. So they're basically turning it into NASCAR. Will it work? Time will tell. So anyway, hopefully flat track will continue to grow. It's a sport that if the public could see it on a TV channel every day or every weekend, you would love it more than any other kite racing there is. I think personally, it's handlebar to handlebar, elbow to elbow. It's you watch this motocross racing stuff nowadays, and I never rode dirty. I don't buy riding dirty. These motocross guys just cut you off, knock you down. Flat tracking has a lot more respect than that. But last year I got invited to the Race of Gentlemen. I've got some antique Harleys. I've got Harleys from the oldest ones in 1942. I've got flatheads, panheads, knuckleheads. But anyway, I did the Race of Gentlemen in Wildwood, New Jersey this year. It's a race on the beach, drag race type situation. Motorcycles can't be any newer than a 1947. Everything's got to be period correct. No zip ties, no black electrical tape. I mean, everything has got to be period correct or they won't let you race. Cars, I think a pre-34. They've got to be, they're everything from homemade belly tankers, anything you can imagine. T models, A models. I went last year. It was a learning experience. I've got a kind of a WR clone flathead 45 that I ran. I didn't quite have it horsepower-wise enough to play with the big boys. I thought it was just kind of a fun and games, but there's some pretty serious guys that come there to do this stuff. Matt Waxler that runs Wheels Through Time. Rick that was on Orange County Chopper, or American Choppers. He's into it. Robbie Wolf that's on American Pickers. It's a lot of the big name guys are there, and they've got some expensive old motorcycles. I'm gonna do a little work here over the summer, and I might try to go back again this fall, and hopefully have a little more horsepower between my legs and get down the beach a little quicker. But that's something if you're just googling around, look up the Race of Gentlemen. It's called TROG. It's the abbreviation on it, but it's some very cool motorcycles, cars, people. Wildwood reminds me maybe of Myrtle Beach back in the 50s and 60s. It's no high-rise motels. It's kind of a step back in time, I guess. We were kind of the only people in town. It was pretty well closed for the winter. Besides that, I'm into antique trucks. I've got some old trucks. I've got I did the rock crawling thing for quite a while. Kind of stepped away from that a bit, but I enjoy the rat ride stuff. I enjoy the old trucks. I've got an old 72 Peterbilt. I've got my dad's old 69 pickup that he bought brand new. Just turned 400,000 miles, so it's on the farm here, and that's kind of my story, I guess. We enjoyed old motorcycles. I do collect signs, as you can see around. I've got quite a few signs, so I'm into sign collecting, motorcycles, old trucks, and I guess that's who I am.